Welcome to episode 80 of the Necronama.com. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And my favorite game as a child was hide and seek, and only one person ever tried to kill me during the game.
And I am Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of this podcast. And I was never a fan of hide and seek for so many reasons. This movie added a couple more.
Joining us today, Cassie Daley. Cassie, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your many hundreds of projects that are going on?
There are a lot. So mostly I think it seems kind of conceited a little bit when I say I'm an artist, but I think that's like the easiest thing to stick with since I make so many different kinds of things. My Etsy, my art shop, it started out as just like bookmarks and art prints and stuff like that, but it kind of developed into including like embroidery and resin art. And then recently I started releasing books in it. And then aside from that, I'm a book blogger kind of, but I also like to incorporate video games and movies and stuff, specifically things related to the 90s, since that's my favorite. And I've been doing that for almost a decade now, which saying that sounds, it's been a while. But I didn't really get into kind of, the whole blogging community until the last couple of years. So it still feels sort of new. And then besides those things, I am on a podcast myself called The Pikecast. It's a Christopher Pike based podcast. We talk about his books from like the 90s. So like they're point horror-esque, but a little bit more adult. They usually have like sex and stuff like that in them. And then I also just started writing this year. So I have 2 stories that are going to be out in anthologies this year and hopefully more stuff next year.
That's awesome. So I did not know you've been doing it for that long. So that was new to me. You definitely are an artist. So don't feel conceited saying that because everything you do is art. Even your photos are like, they're photographic art. Like they're beautiful. So yeah. Definitely don't feel conceited. You deserve it.
I think it's a little... Sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
It's easy for the things that I do to look pretty or like good because they're just so colorful. So I think even if they were just like, oh, her art's not that great, but look at all those colors, So I think it's a little bit of a cheat.
It's not cheating. It's good marketing. There's a difference. So Christopher Pike, how did this start? Like... Did one of the other hosts hit you up, or how did this happen?
Yeah, actually. So Cooper Beckett, he is a writer and he has his own other podcast related to non-bookish stuff. He actually messaged me and he was like, I know that you've been posting about Christopher Pike and you do a lot of blog posts and you read them and you post a lot of pictures of his books. Do you want to do this? And up till that point, I had actually only done one podcast type thing before, and I was super, super nervous about it. So I was like, I don't know. Like, this sounds like a great idea, but I'm very scared. And he was super, super nice. He's been very helpful. And then he brought on another girl that we know, Becca, and I've known her for a couple of years now online. So that was really cool because I was like, oh, good. Like somebody that I know that I've been friends with, that I feel comfortable with. And then Cooper, who I have known more recently, but, also feel comfortable with. It was better than doing it alone. That's not something that I could have ever done by myself, I think.
Well, and it's kind of cool because Becca hadn't read them. So yeah. She's got this different perspective because most of us jumped into Pike when we were young, right? Like he was like the doorway, basically. For me, it was point horror books by R.L. Stine and a couple other people there, but also Pike. But like having an adult go into this has to be really interesting and very strange because as you pointed out on at least one episode, I don't know if it was you, but one of you guys, there are some problematic issues with Christopher Pike books as the years have gone by. And it's such a different view because it's not that rose-colored view that teenagers have of what the world is, So I thought that was really interesting to bring in somebody that wasn't a huge fan going in.
Yeah, I think it's been really fun too, because Becca, she was obviously really open-minded, and she was like, oh, this is great. I'm really excited for this. And then as we read them, she likes some of them, and then some of them she doesn't like. And it's funny because it's like hearing why she doesn't like them. I'm like, yeah, no, as an adult, like I totally agree with you. But, 12-year-old me was super into this at the same time. And then what's also cool is that a lot of the books that we've covered to begin with, we've kind of, for a majority of our guests so far, we've just let them choose. So weirdly, a lot of these books that we've been covering are books that I did not read when I was younger. And then so I feel a little bit like a fraud. And I'm like, I'm a huge Christopher Pike fan, but these first 3 out of these 5 books I have not read, and this is my first time. So I think it's also interesting because I really love Christopher Pike, and I'm like, oh, I'm such a big fan. But then when I read some of these, I'm like, oh, I don't actually like this book. And if I had read this when I was younger, I'm not sure that I would have kept going.
Yeah, I would totally be the person that would constantly yell, well, 12-year-old me disagrees, but no, I could totally see that. But I don't think that's a fraud. I mean, these books were coming out so fast. It was nuts. And then it's not like we had the internet. We couldn't just hop on and download the latest ebook. We had to wait till our libraries got it. Yeah. And some libraries strangely had all of them. Some had 5, it was weird. And what I find fascinating about it is I feel like these librarians were not doing a good job at all. I went to Catholic grade school and high school, which is why I'm not Catholic anymore. And these books, there's no way that they should have made it into that library because they were psycho about the music we listened to or anything else. I can't imagine that they were like, oh, well, this book's great. They should read this. and I would just like to know how that happened. But, but going back to Pike versus the others and the whole adding sex, and it's just kind of an older version, basically. I look at the stuff that pulled me in back then, like R.L. Stine's Blind Date or The Babysitter 1 and 2. I didn't read 3 and 4. I'm sorry, everybody. But, maybe I'll read them now. But, I look at those books and I refuse to reread them because I don't want to know how bad they were. Do you have that at all? Are you scared? Is there one you love and you're like, please don't ever cover this. I don't want to open this and find out. Yeah.
So we're actually, a few of my favorite ones are the ones that we have scheduled, but we haven't recorded yet, and we're going to be doing it. And I feel I'm really nervous because I've hyped them up so much. And one of our last ones, it was really loosely, it had the smallest bit of sci-fi stuff type in it. Which I really love. So one of my favorite books is one of his called The Starlight Crystal that focuses completely on sci-fi stuff. And I'm so excited to get to it. And then when we were recording the episode for the other one, Becca was like, I didn't like any of the sciencey stuff. And I was like, oh no, oh God, you are not going to like the book we're about to cover because it is all like that. And so stuff like that I'm just like, oh, I've really, really talked up a couple of these books because I remember them being so formative for me and so, just in ways that I didn't even realize at the time. When I was little, I read The Immortal by Pike, and I have been obsessed with Greece. I've always wanted to go to Greece. I love learning about mythology and stuff. I don't know if anybody else did this, but we had to choose a country to do a report on. And it couldn't be somewhere we were familiar with, that we were from, because my go-to would usually always be Argentina because it was easy and I could just, it was my family and I can just hey, tell me something cool I can put in my paper. But they were like, you can't do it on a place that or that your family knows. So do something different that you're not familiar with. And I was like, well, my family has never gone to Greece, but I've read these books, so I'm totally going to use this. And it's just as we're doing these episodes too, it's really cool because we're covering different things that now as an adult, I'm like, oh my God, this is still a thing that terrifies me, or this is still a thing that I remember, but I didn't know what it was from. And it's stuck out to me so much from being young and from reading this when I was really little that it's such a big part of me and I didn't even know. So I think it's really cool. It's fun, but it's also nerve wracking, like you said, because I'm positive that some of the ones that are my most favorite are not going to be as good revisiting them now as an adult.
What about you, Don? Did you have to pick a country and do a report? school?
Oh God, yeah, way too many times. I can't, look, that was so long ago. I can't recall. All I know is that when I got to grad school, or I think it was even undergrad, it was like Brazil, Chile, Cuba. It was places that were on my list to go to. Kind of in the same vein that I hadn't gone to, didn't have that much information about. But then was astounded by the stuff that I found out as I did the research. But now I can't remember anything from when that was so long ago.
So I did one when I was like 11, and I picked Ireland for the best reason ever. I picked Ireland because earlier that month I had gone to a bar with my parents, and the whole place was decorated in Irish stuff, and I thought that was really cool. And it turns out I just really like pubs, and that hasn't changed. So yeah, I did a fucking report because I went to a pub when I was 11.
Have you been to Ireland now?
I have not.
Oh, maybe it's really good. You should go. It's really fun. And I went once, and it was a couple of years ago. And I don't really drink because it doesn't like. My body doesn't handle it well for some. I get like super drunk immediately, and then I get very sick like an hour later. So
I haven't had alcohol in 9 years, but I still love pubs. So yeah,
no, because the environment is really fun. Because when you go in, everybody's like singing, and there's such loud music, and usually they have live music too, and it's like traditional Irish music, and it's like I don't know how to explain because I've never been in in another environment like that where everybody they're all smiling and dancing around. Nobody really knows each other, but they're all hugging and like swinging around on their arms and stuff. And it was just so much fun, even for me, just sitting there completely sober. Like, this is such a great time.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, contrast that with American bars where everybody's depressed.
And they get angry at American ones a lot too, and it makes me nervous. Yeah.
I'm always nervous in there, but I still go because they have the best wings. But no, it also reminds me of the beginning of The Wicker Man, so it scares me a little bit.
But I was about to point that out.
That was one of the episodes I was listening to earlier because I was like prepping and I was listening to it with Haley, and I was like, oh my God, like I love this movie. But yeah, this is. And you guys mentioned how it's like kind of like a musical or whatever, and I was like, I never thought about it like that. But there's that particular like, I don't know, she's like twerking or something against a door scene, and that one just really stood with me forever. Like I can't get that out of my head ever.
So strange. But yeah, what a great movie. But no, as soon as you said it, like that was the first thing in my head. I was like, uh-oh, they're setting somebody up, even though that wasn't Irish. But I want to come back to a couple of your projects really fast. So you did the, I'm going to mess up the title, so feel free to correct me. There was the horror author's coloring book, something to that effect. Tell me about it.
So the Big Book of Horror Authors, it's a coloring and activity book. I had to look it up because I was like, how did I title this? So it features 20 authors. Actually, so if you count me, because I have a short story now, technically, it's 21 authors. So I put 20 plus on the book.
Nice.
And it's got, just the little things, It's got a bunch of authors in it, and they're done through drawings that I've done of them as half monsters. So I gave them all like a list of, I think, 4 or 5 different monsters. And I was like, you guys pick your own, and I will draw you as half this. And so they did it. And it was a lot more challenging than I thought going into it, to be honest, because I was like, I'd never made any kind of book like that. I didn't know what to expect. And it took several months of time. Like, it was pretty time consuming. And coordinating with that many people too, I was so nervous because like I've told you guys, I'm very like just anxious as a person. And so just the idea of having to reach out to so many people and potentially hearing them say, no, I'm not into this idea. Like, it was so scary. But everybody was super on board with it. They were all really, really nice. And it's kind of like a little labor of love to give back sort of to the horror community, because I've made a lot of friends in the community. I've met a lot of people that I admire and respect. And I think that there isn't enough stuff out. Like, you can find books about Stephen King. You can find coloring books for Stephen King. Like, you can find things for big popular people that everybody knows, but I don't think there's a lot of like that for independent author fans. So I kind of wanted to do something that maybe people who are like me and like don't really go to huge bookstores, but kind of read stuff from people online. That would be like a cool way that they could add to their hobbies. I don't know, with that sort of. If that sounded terrible, you can just cut it all and we can start over.
Oh, absolutely not. It was great. But no, I was looking at the Jonathan Jan's page today because that's the one that happened to come up when I was looking it up. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. I just think it's so cool. I didn't know that you had given them options of the monsters and stuff, so that's really neat too.
Yeah. Most of them chose. A couple of them, I gave them like a really short deadline. I was like, "Can you guys get back to me in a week?" Because that's when I was only going to do them as regular, just drawings at first. And then I was working on it. I was like, "This is a little not. I don't want to say boring because that sounds rude. Because they all have their faces are all fine, but it was just it wasn't as horror-y as I wanted, you know. I thought the creature thing would be fun.
No, that's cool. And then what is the tarot journal? I need to know about this because I've been spending a lot of time with tarot lately.
So the tarot journal, it's a 6-month book, and it's really just so if I don't know if you do it, but I like to do a daily card, and I do also cards sometimes, like a reading for like one card for the whole month, just like an overall theme. And I made the book for myself, and then I was like, I'm going to make more of these and put them in Etsy and see if other people like them. So that's honestly really how it started. And it's just, it tells you a little bit about tarot in it. It's got a couple of similar pages to my other one, which is called You're Out of This World. And it's like a planner activity book for witchy stuff and just kind of like self-love and getting to know yourself a little bit and things like working on self-esteem, working on things that you're insecure about. And so they go together sort of, but you know, they're not dependent on one another. And then the tarot journal kind of just has a 6-month spread idea as well as a ton of pages that you can write in your daily card and then your interpretations. And then you can also like put in like how it applied to that day, what you got from it. You have a little area where you can draw or put like symbols or something that you want to put in there from the day that applied to it. And it's a lot of blank stuff in there. So you can personalize it completely and you can start at any time. Like it doesn't have to be started on January 1st. It goes for 6 months, but it can be started any day you want.
Okay.
Oh, that's really cool.
Thanks.
I just gave Don a tarot deck because I've been spending so much time with it. I was like, you need one too. Deal with it.
That's cool. Yeah.
There was no deal with it. It was like, here's what I got you. It's a voodoo tarot. I was like, holy shit, that is awesome.
That is really cool. Do you have a link to it? I want to see.
I was flying and I pulled it out of my bag and then I put it right back in because I started getting some looks and was like, all right, I don't need to be that guy on the plane.
Oh, no.
I thought that would be amazing if people act up on the plane and he just starts like pulling it out and like mumbling incoherencies and they would freak the hell out, you know.
Or just like making direct eye contact too, like staring them down while he pulls the cards.
In fairness, I was also a total jerk about it, and I made some jokes about bringing like a little voodoo doll and taking out the people that won't wear masks. So, you know. But no, it's my way of dealing with being sad that Don was leaving me again. So sad. So he's going home. It's rude.
Mississippi is not home, dude.
That's true. I'll give you that. But no, how long have you been doing tarot?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
you. Definitely you.
No,
3 days.
I think maybe like 9 years now. It was a couple of years before I moved to Boston and a couple of years before I moved to Colorado. So it's hard for me to remember things time-wise unless I figure out where I was living at the time. And I was in Florida, but it was right before I moved. I remember I got my first tarot deck because there was this little like occult type shop, and they had like in the front window it was mostly just like incense and like these skull-shaped planters. But then if you actually went inside, they actually had like a lot of books and just really cool stuff that you could not find anywhere else really that I could find in Florida. And I bought this little deck that I didn't know anything about it at the time, but the lady was like, oh, like you should go over here and look at these. And I saw one that was really colorful and I got really excited because, you know, naturally I gravitate towards things that have a lot of colors. And so I brought it home and I got a book online and I just started, you know, trying to do like little readings for myself and seeing, mostly I would do them when I was anxious. So like if I was really nervous about something or if I was just undecided or didn't know something that was going to happen, I would kind of use it as a way to help me calm down a little bit. And then over time, I just used them more on just general reflection and things like that. So I think it's kind of grown with me. But I do turn back to my cards too when I'm very anxious. So I still go back to that a little bit.
Oh, that's cool though. Yeah, mine started during COVID. I tend to work on like 8 projects at once. So I'm always all over the damn place and it makes Dawn insane. And, I'll write him and be like, so I'm working on the book. And he's like, which book? And I'm like, shut up. But anyway, so I really got it for like mindfulness, just like taking a minute and like really concentrating on one thing. So I do the daily poll and just kind of like, I try to like seek out things during the day that come back to that and just like take that moment and pay attention to it just to stay more grounded and not all over the place. And then I started researching it and I found like writers that use it for like character development. And so I started doing some of those polls and that was crazy. Like I had a character completely outline himself in 5 cards. And wow. I was like, this is the kind of shit I spend days on. And this just like made his whole story make sense. And I thought that was so cool. So I'm kind of doing that as well, but I'm very new, not quite as new as Don, but pretty new. And so I just thought it was cool that you had the journal and I just wanted to know more about it. Yeah.
No, yeah, I think that is cool. I think it's cool that you mentioned the story thing too. So in the other book that I have that I mentioned, the You're Out of This World one, that one has a lot of tarot stuff in it. And one of the spreads that I have in that book is a 7-card tarot spread that it's for creative writing. So like, for example, the first card applies to your main character. And then the second card would be their character flaw. And then like story setting, conflict, reward, outcome, stuff like that. So ideally, in my head, the one creative writing tarot spread, you could use that to like do a whole story from it, if that makes sense.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, totally.
I thought it sounded cool. I haven't personally done it myself yet. So again, I made these books for me. So I'm going to be using that one in the new year too, starting January 1st. So I'm excited to do that.
So the thing I'll say to that is I talk to a lot of authors because of this show and just because the horror community in general is awesome. And as I get to know people, the thing I've discovered is that everybody that makes something really great did it for them. It's never, oh, my agent had this idea or this publisher had this idea and then I wrote it. No, it's always the shit that mattered to us that we needed. So I think you're on the right track is my point.
Good. That's what I'm finding. Like, that's how it's been going with my writing and just my art stuff in general. Like, it's stuff that I make because I want to make it, and then I post it and somebody wants to buy it. And I'm like, yes, here, thank you, please. So it's been working out.
Like when I wrote Fat Camp, that was completely therapy for me, you know? Yeah. It was dealing with years of being bullied or whatever else and that kind of shit. And then the fact that other people liked it was just extra.
It's extra goodness too, because you feel so validated. You're like, yes, this helped me and other people like it. It's double win.
Exactly. What about you, Don? Are your books that way?
Well, I was gonna say definitely the first one, the Token Black Guy, because I don't even know how to explain it. It was just one of those things where I was frustrated with I guess ignorance, both purposeful ignorance and then just passive ignorance with respect to, race and identity, or at least discussing those issues of race and identity. And so I just sat down and I listed all the things I shouldn't say all the things, a good number of things that had taken place over my lifetime that I experienced or other people I knew experienced, and tried to figure out the best way to explain it to them. But then the second book, the novella Bastards of the Bayou, that was one of those things where I needed to address some historically based things, but I did not have all the data to actually turn it into, a scholarly article. So I figured, well, hell, I'm just going to go ahead and turn this into historical fiction, horror thriller, and have fun with it. And so a good number of, especially my relatives who read it, they were like, holy shit, this was really good. I normally don't read stuff like this. And I read it in one sitting and thinking like, great. Then, of course, you have a couple of people like, this was very predictable. I'm like, it wasn't a mystery. So I'm like, thank you for your opinion. But I really wrote this for me, and anybody else who wants to read it, great. Leave me a review.
It's funny you said this isn't a mystery. That's always the number one criticism I get of Fat Camp. They're like, we figured out the killer right away. And in my head, I'm always like, well, it wasn't meant to be a mystery. Like, I literally call him out at the end of one of the early chapters. I mean, I kind of thought it was obvious, but okay. But yeah, so maybe that should just be our new slogan, Rogue Panda Media. It's not a mystery. But spoiler, the cassowary kills everybody, and he's on the cover of the book. All right. I suppose we should get into Ready or Not. Spoilers. This is normally where I would say, Cassie, why did you pick Ready or Not? But considering I picked it and then tracked you down and begged you to do it, I will answer the question. So I picked this because it is literally my favorite movie of 2019. I am the audience for this film. Like, I truly feel Radio Silence was like, how do we make a movie that would entertain James Sabata? And because I'm an egomaniac. And so, no, but that's how deeply it speaks to me. I love this fucking movie. Clue is one of my all-time favorite movies. Anything with slashers and final girls, definitely up there, right? So this is the marriage I've been looking for forever, and I didn't know it. And then you add in Samara Weaving, who is, in my opinion, the future of Scream Queens, the presence of Scream Queens. I think that she's amazing in every way. So this is just like the perfect little package for me. The main theme is the rich suck, right? And it's so prevalent that I don't even really want to talk about it. I'm sure we're going to talk about it. I feel like the rich suck is an overdone theme. So I'm going to give you a little lengthy answer about people hunting each other, but this is why I picked it as well, because it comes down to this final piece. So we always kind of resort to rich people are different, or rich people suck, or rich people are assholes, and that's a great theme. I agree with all of that. But I feel like what Radio Silence did with this is that they made it about the consequences of money being dangerous, not just having money. It's that privilege. It's that entitlement. Those are the dangerous things. And I enjoy how they used privilege and entitlement to also weaken the Ladomas family, because these guys assume they're winning. There's no question. They're not even going to tell her what's happening, right? She's going to go hide. They're going to kill her. This is done. They expect this to be handed to them like everything else in life. And it's that entitlement and that privilege right there that gives Grace the chance to fight back. And that's why I chose it. But let me lay this out a little bit more. So we have all these past films of the rich hunting poor people. We have The Most Dangerous Game, even Hard Target, or The Simpsons fucking did it in season 17, I think, where they basically made fun of this same thing, and Mr. Burns was hunting people. And this is just an ongoing thing. I haven't seen The Hunt, but I believe that that's also... Have either of you seen The Hunt?
I haven't.
A while ago. Oh, no, I'm thinking of The Game. I'm sorry. No, I haven't seen The Hunt.
All right, The Hunt's the one that got pulled because,
Right.
Anyway, yeah, so I believe it's along the same line. It's rich people hunting less than rich people, shall we say. And what these movies normally do is you get like the Donald Trump Jr.'s of the world who are big trophy hunters and take down these wild beasts because they're not happy with a regular deer. They need a lion or an elephant. And they kick it up that level to hunting humans instead, right? But they're always good at it. And this movie takes that privilege and that entitlement, and it makes them suck at hunting. And that is why I chose this film. Because I think that is the greatest subversion of expectation that I've seen in the last decade.
I was gonna say, they even make a reference to it because when they can't find Grace, it's like, how hard can this be? She's a twig, she's a blonde twig. Like, she shouldn't be a challenge at all. But you know what I find weird about that, and thank you for going through, the at least the summary of this film, but then also summarizing the idea and the concept of it that so many other ones have been based off of. Because, I mean, it's been recreated a number of times. There was a John Leguizamo movie, The Pest, where it was more of a comedy than a horror because they had fun with the whole, hey, this guy, they're rich and they want to, collect human trophies from every race. So the guy had already gotten a white guy, a black guy, and, he's Puerto Rican, so he's the next one. But you've got all these things that are going on, and just the idea that you have to have someone who is joining the family as opposed to, I wonder how this would look at if it wasn't just the goats they have to sacrifice. It wasn't just someone who joined their family that they have to sacrifice if they pull that card. But if this was, all right, it's Tuesday, or it's the fifth Tuesday of a month, whatever rules that the demon comes up with. It's the fifth Tuesday of the month. Oh my gosh, we have to find someone to sacrifice. And it was like some random person they invited to the house or to the grounds. Like, how would that work? Would they be able to pull it off? As opposed to someone who's there, who's already feels safe, who's not suspecting anything, and should be easy to kill. But yeah, I just love the fact that they're fucking it up all around. I mean, you got Emily high on cocaine. You've got
Emily is the greatest character.
She's hilarious.
Why does this always happen to me?
I think
which makes me question, how many times does it happen?
How many times has she killed people, right? Like, how many times? I think it's interesting how many times they have to comfort her, and how often she's the one who's like freaking out and crying and panicking. And it just makes me think of how many other times have they been in this situation where she's made such big mistakes and they're just like, oh, it's okay. It's just Emily. We just have to calm down. It's okay. It's okay. It's crazy to me.
And I think that's probably her life. I look at, I'm just rude to the Trumps anyway, but I look at the Trumps and these people fuck shit up constantly. So Emily, I expect the same thing. She's been handed everything. She just expects things to work. And then when she has to do a little tiny bit of work, oh my God, it's the end of the world. They haven't had to kill anybody since the aunt's husband when the boys were young. They're used to pulling the card and being done. Like, they don't want to do any of this shit. That's why they're not good at hunting. Most of the people here have never done this.
I think that's an interesting thing, too, is how you were comparing them to some of those other movies where rich people are hunting for sport because it's fun for them as part of their privilege, whereas this, like you're saying, it works against them. So it's not their sport. This isn't something that they want to do. And not just that, but they have to do it for their survival. Right. So it's not just something they're doing because they want to, or oh, this is a great, an enjoyment thing for us. Like, we're going to die if we do not do this thing here. And they're so bad at it still. You'd think they'd prepare. Why wouldn't you learn how to use a crossbow if that's what you have to use? I don't get it.
Because they're expecting someone else to do it. Well, they're expecting someone else in the family to pull it off.
Well, yeah, it's that dependence that somebody else is going to clean up this mess, which gets brought up a couple of times in the film when they end up killing, the babysitter, or one of the maids, or the one that because the dad just likes the way she dances. They with the first death, it's like, oh, get so and so in here, clean up this mess, because it's kind of like they don't want to fucking do it. They don't have to do it. They shouldn't have to get their hands dirty. And Fitch, who is a great character included in anyway, when they first arrive, they don't make it to the wedding. But their response is, we got the last charter out of Charles de Gaulle. I just can't fly commercial. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. Like, they're just throwing it right in your face, like how shitty of human beings these people are because they're so used to being rich that, I'm not flying commercial. That's for poor people. That's what he almost says in that moment. But he doesn't. He's just like, well, we got the last charter. I am so done flying commercial. I'm like, okay, we get it. You got money.
It's such a disconnect, too, from Grace, because we don't know a lot about her past, but we know that she does not come from money. So having such a blatant, just privileged thing, just, hi, I'm going to meet you for the first time. And he's like, oh God, I can't imagine being poor. It's like, damn, she must feel so unwelcome.
Well, that and the whole foster family thing, they were like, oh yeah, we know this is your first real family. And I'm like, God, you guys are really digging in with her, to paraphrase what Andy McDowell says. And I think even the dad says, whereas Alex, he's kind of like, oh, we don't have to do this. But it's very important to my family, and I know how you've always wanted a family. They kind of throw it into your face there that they're comfortable with each other. She wants to make his family complete by becoming part of it, but then also bring him back to his family and having a normal relationship, because that's what she, I guess, is starting to see is what should be normal, the ideal family, as opposed to bouncing around foster homes and what she was used to, and not having that stability. And I mean, they see her coming. I mean, it's remarkable at how well they figure out what her weaknesses are, or at least assume her weaknesses are, by making her feel comfortable with this whole idea of family. Especially with Andy McDowell's like, oh, you and I are just alike. I didn't come from money either. And, his family didn't like me. But you know what? Fuck them. We're here. We're survivors. Which, again, was interesting to pull in, which makes you question how things would have looked if the card hadn't been pulled. I mean, we wouldn't have a movie, but how things would have looked if that card hadn't been pulled. Were they still going to just completely treat her like, she's just here for the money?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at Daniel's wife.
Charity.
Yeah, what a great name. I can't believe I forgot her name. That's amazing. But, you look at her and she is the stereotypical gold digger, like down to being proud of it and being open about it. And that's awesome. But she looks at him at one point and she's like, where I was, I'm not going back there. And I think that that's such a great foil to Grace, because I think that Grace would have gotten to the point where she realized this is not a family. Like what she had in foster care might have been more of a family, depending where she was, of course, But that idea of what family is versus the reality of being around these people, I think that could have been interesting in and of itself in an alternate reality.
Like an alternate version of the movie?
Yeah. Yeah, multiverse of Ready or Not. That's what I need. No,
God, I agree with you, because I think it would be also really interesting to see a movie version where because those two women, like you guys both just said, they have that experience. They've been in her place where they came from less than, and now they're here. So you would think they would feel like they need to protect her, like they're more on her side, but they just double down with the other rich folk now, and they're just like, no, I'm not giving any of this up, which is wild, because from what we know of Grace's character, she's not somebody who would do that. Like, she doesn't seem like, even if she had gotten through this night, even if she survived or whatever, or they just played like bridge or something, it doesn't seem like she would have assimilated to their family. So I don't, like, why even bring her there? Like, you have to have known your own fiance wife enough to know this is not going to fly in any way.
I got why she's brought in. And this is something, it took me a little bit. It took me a little bit to get there. If you notice, because I want to call her Mimi Rogers, but Andy McDowell's character and Charity, they're both, open about they came from meager, humble beginnings, right? If that's by design, because Aunt Helene's husband doesn't seem to be poor.
Oh, that's beautiful. Continue.
You're bringing in someone that is not going to be missed if they happen to pull that card.
Holy shit.
So,
I didn't realize that, yeah.
I have seriously watched this over 20 times.
I thought you would have gotten this, man.
And I feel the way that Bob Pastorella did when I told him who had sex with the wife at beginning of Body Double. That's how I feel right now. So, Bob, if you're listening, oh my God. All right, go ahead.
All right, so you're picking someone that is going to help continue this. So you can have them up as a sacrifice, which, again, you've got all those goats that they reference. And, of course, you have the goat pit because it's something that is not going to be missed. You've got all these poor people. Who's going to miss, some poor kid, some poor foster kid? It's somebody who disappears, right? Some poor kid from the trailer park, some poor kid from the ghetto, from the projects, from the inner city, right? Not going to miss them. So it's simply, hey, I really like you. I got a family. We're wealthy. Because this is also the reason why I don't really trust Alex. I think he had second thoughts about it, but he understood who Grace was, and the fact that he couldn't marry somebody of his same station if they happen to have a powerful family or a family that rivals them, right? And their kid goes, it's not going to have that same connection to where, it's not going to have that same result as you have with Grace, where you have the wedding and she goes missing. All those fucking people that were there, I don't trust any of them. I'm sure some of them may know a little bit about what's going on, but aren't going to care enough, a day later or 2 days later to really follow up. If she is missing, and have brunch or breakfast or invite them to dinner, because that's not their family. It's the I'm just going to call them the dumbasses, the dumbass family. They're the ones that are concerned with keeping track of people, because she has no family to go back to, right? Yep. She has no family that came to the wedding. So there's no one that you contact. She's erasable and expendable. And the same thing with Andie MacDowell's character, same thing with Charity. I would say Fitch as well, because that's a very me thing that I would have said. Uh-huh. And I know this is kind of sound fucked up, but there is a certain point. If you travel and you have that ability to travel, let's say first class, business class, or even like a private plane, you're gonna get used to it. And you're like, God, I can't go back to fucking coach. I can't. And nothing against people in coach. It's just one of those things of like, I now have an elevated status that the airlines have given me, or the train station has given me, or whoever's given me. Man, you gave me a taste of the good life. I'm not giving that shit back. I can get an upgrade on this flight. Me, right here. I want the upgrade. And so that's what I see with him. With Fitch, it's, I got a taste of the good life, so now I'm going to buy into it, which is why he doesn't fucking know how to do a crossbow, but he knows how to Google it. So I think anybody who's added to the family, because kids don't count, anybody who's added to the family from the outside would have to be expendable. And that's what you have with Andie MacDowell's character. That's what you have with Charity, and that's what you have with Grace. I think Grace, if it hadn't been her who was being hunted down, and this was 10 years, 15 years in the future, right? And it's one of the boys, one of the nephews, who's getting married, and it's been explained to her why all this is taking place and why it needs to be done, because something will happen to you. I think she would participate. I don't know if she would actually kill anybody. But I think it would be an issue of her. She would participate out of that fear and out of that sense of family that they've created for her. Because I think after, let's say, 5, 10, 15 years that she's around with them, there is going to be a link that's created, and she's going to be accustomed to that stability that this new family creates. And as Charity said, I don't want to go back to that. I could see Grace saying the same thing. I don't want to go back to that.
Well, I mean, we become who we surround ourselves with, so it's definitely possible. But no, I love this theory. It fits every single person, and wow, yeah. Cassie, do you have anything to add to this?
No, just I hadn't really considered that Alex would have known the whole time and was like part of the plan, but that also makes sense because later when she is talking to him, he kind of tries to guilt her or sort of gaslight her and make her think that it's her fault that she's in this position. He's like, well, you would have left me. I know. He's like, you would have left me. And it's like, maybe if you had given her all of the information, she would have been like, oh, I'm satisfied not being married. Let's just go live and, exist without having to draw a card that could kill me. Like, he didn't give her the information because, like you're saying, he didn't really plan to try to save her. Like, he maybe had some second thoughts and misgivings, but overall it seems like he has those loyalties to his family, because even in the beginning of the movie, he's a child. So that's what he grew up with. That's what he knows. Right. And he's really close with his brother, who's the only other person there whose opinion he would trust. So yeah, I didn't consider that at all, but that does make sense.
Yeah, but even Alex's whole thing, I'm on the fence, because I want to say that he knows, like, he's in on it, but then it's also that moment where it's second guessing or what's going. Because even Daniel has that moment where he's just like, I'm not going to kill you. I just came in here for a drink. I'll give you a head start. He's just like, I don't care about this shit. They can, I'm not going to save you. I'm not going to help you. But this is why I fucking drink all the time.
Isn't that the ultimate privilege, though? Sitting out and not taking any action?
Oh, well, 100%. He does later, too, though. He does
later, yes. Them, yeah. But I mean, in that time, moment.
Yeah.
But going back to Alex, he's even a dick sooner than that. Okay, so number one, I am completely sold now. I believe that Alex is in on this from the beginning, went hunting to get this girl and brought her back. So that's where I'm at. Mm-hmm. So thanks, Don. Anyway.
Right, and that's why I said I'm not sure if it's second guessing or if it's he intentionally went out there, comes back, and then feels bad because he does have feelings for her, doesn't want it to happen to it. It's a really good mind fuck that the producers and the director play with you with Alex, where you're not 100% sure. I'm sorry, go ahead.
But even when they're in the what are they? The servants, the tunnels, like
the servant passages.
Yeah. So when they're in there, she's like, "You knew," and he's like, "You're the one that wanted to get married."
Right.
What a douche thing to say! Holy shit! Like maybe if you'd been like during your however long bonathon, as they call it, maybe at some point you could have been like, "Hey, here's why I'm not going to marry you. We can just like chill together and have a happy life, and nobody has to die if we don't get married."
Right.
Like if he had said that, he could have probably kept the girl. He might be a little worried about losing her, but if he truly fell in love with her, because I think that's where it lies. I think he went hunting to get this girl to bring her back, and he accidentally fell in love along the way. And now he's torn because either she has to die or he has to die. But he took the chance because any card that's been pulled, it hasn't happened. Right? So he thought going in, it's fine. So then he gets to the point where it's not fine, and he tells her how to get away from them, or at least how to hide until morning. And so I don't think that it's questionable at the beginning. I think he 100% went out to do this, but he's still a douche every fucking time. It's her fault. She wanted to get married. She did this. She did this. The family did this. It's always somebody else. He never takes responsibility.
He only really seems to he only really cares about her when she's like loving him, like when he thinks that he could be her hero, or when he thinks that, she's going to turn to him or he can save her. But like, because at the end, when it's very clear that she's not going to trust him again, and she does not, have the same feelings anymore because this whole situation has fucked things up for her. And then suddenly there's like this flip where he's like, okay, well, I guess because I don't have you now, like, you're not going to do what I want. You're not worth living. Like, you're not worth protecting. You're not worth trying to save, which I think is what ultimately makes him just a douche. Like, he's just a shit person because he was okay with trying to help her, regardless of like, maybe he did plan it. Maybe he thought, we'll just get checkers. It won't be a big deal. And then we can have the money and live separate from my family. Maybe he was a good guy from that respect. But then at the end, when he's like, you're not fitting into what I wanted you to fit into anymore. So now I'm going to stab you in the chest as a sacrifice. Like, that part is where I was like, no more, Alex. Goodbye.
How dare you have your own opinions? You're supposed to be here for me.
Right. Like, it's gross.
Well, and even with that, their relationship, and I guess you could fan it out to other people's relationships in this film. You can look at this as, this is a good critique of the way that, I guess, toxic relationships or I'll just stick with toxic relationships themselves. How toxic relationships work, to where it's about this thing of, I fell in love with this version of you. Now you're not that version of you. So I'm not as interested. You're not wearing the sexy, cute outfits, or you're not, you didn't do this with your hair, or you're not wearing this type of suit or anything like that, to where you see how people become very controlling. You see how people, gaslight on a various number of issues, and can view their relationships as disposable because this is not the one that I signed up for. I signed up for version A, and all of a sudden now you're version Q. And that's another reason why with the subsequent watchings of this film, I don't like Alex. Once the card is pulled, because then you see he changes as well, and it's not just an issue of you can blame his family. It's like, no, dude, I can imagine all the other women that you had been with, and you made these same stupid comments too about like, oh, what do you mean you're not going to cook for me? You're not doing my laundry?
Now we'll have to hire somebody.
What did I even get married for? I've heard that like from various complaints in television shows and social media, and I'm like, not for laundry and cooking, dude. That's not what you get married for.
Jesus. I want to talk for a second about Daniel. because Daniel is my second favorite character in this film. Number one being Emily. I love anything Emily does. But I love how they make Daniel out from the beginning to be kind of a sleazebag. She's like, oh, he's always hitting on me. He's trying to get you the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
he's trying to break up your marriage so that this doesn't happen to you. And I think that it's fantastic that that's built in there and that Daniel is already, he's just not, he doesn't give a shit about any of it. He wants to just not do it, you know? And I think that that's such an interesting little way to make you have a view of a character and not understand what's really going on.
Right.
And then the entire time, you know, he has all these supposed bad habits like his drinking or just the way that he interacts with his wife, which I definitely would as well, whether she was my wife or some random person, because Charity's crazy. Anyway, but like he has all these things that should make him kind of an undesirable character, and instead those are the things that make him the good guy. And I love that subversion. And I absolutely adore how his death sets Alex off because Alex doesn't understand what happened.
Yeah. I
think that is so well done. So yeah, I just really wanted to say how much I love Daniel. That's the point of this.
I like him too. No, I agree with you. I do think it's weird though how he ended up with Charity, because she's so unlikable to me. Like everything she said was just so unlikable. And despite all the things that you listed that were supposed to make him like not a great person, he seemed like a decent, likable person. And maybe that was due to his guilt because of what he did as a kid, you know, and what had happened 30 years before. Or maybe, okay, so now I'm just thinking as I'm talking, but maybe he just doesn't even like her. And he was like, well, if somebody has to have a card pulled and then ends up killing somebody, maybe it's better that it's somebody I hate. And he does truly not like her, but she fits into the family well enough because she's a crap person.
And she could have totally changed too. She could have been a wonderful person when she didn't have money, you know, like, and then become one of them. And he clearly doesn't like them. So, yeah.
Well, there's this saying about money, and I'm going to butcher this one, but the second half is the most important. And it was basically saying that money reveals who you are. And I think that's why you see such a turn with somebody, or a possible turn with somebody like Charity, to where she may have been a nice person, as the two of you are saying. She may have been a nice person from humble beginnings, struggled. Let's just say she happened to be working at, some bar or wherever. And Daniel meets her there because he had just broken up with a girlfriend. He's drinking. She pours him some drinks and they hang out. She takes a shot with him. And she's a fun person, right? But now being in this marriage or being in this family and being hip to what's going on, it's that whole thing of, I'm not giving this up. Like, I'm a fighter. I'm going to claw and bite and kick and whatever I need to do to stay in this position. So I think the taste of the good life, or just being part of that, makes it to where, her true intentions and her true self get revealed. Because as the dad points out, like, they've got so much money, right? They built this empire off of board games and gaming itself, starting with a deck of, a card game or making cards, right? To the point where he's like, oh, yeah, and then we also own 4 professional sports teams. And I mean, basically their whole life is about games and sporting, right?
Yep.
So I just look at it as, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I don't know if I were put in that position to where I would kind of refuse to participate. Even if it's just kind of like, oh, it's about ceremony and it's fun and it's going to be goofy. Oh, shit, we got to kill somebody? You guys are bullshitting. Until you start seeing, my favorite character, Aunt Helene, pull out the robes and start chanting and stuff. And you're like, oh, fuck, you guys are serious. Which I've got a thing about ceremony, but I'll come back to it later.
No, I think you're really onto something, though. When you're talking about how much money they have, like, that goes back to Charity, and also what I was saying earlier, where it becomes not about the money making you evil, but this privilege and this entitlement.
Right.
And once Charity has those things, that's what she doesn't want to give up. She doesn't want to give up this life. She's willing to kill Daniel to keep this, because
definitely.
because she's more of the family than Daniel is. So she assumes she wouldn't go anywhere in that situation, and she'd be a hero for helping save the day here. But like that whole, we have so much money, we have 4 sports teams. Like that's an insane amount of money. That's astronomical. And it just, you have to think that if you live the lifestyle that the 3 of us live, and then you're given a piece of that, we would change, right? So being thrown into that, I can't even imagine how that would affect you.
It would be a lot.
And what you could suddenly justify.
There's going to be a lot that you'll definitely justify, and you see how they react to certain things, like even the deaths of the servants themselves, right?
I liked her.
Yeah, she was my favorite. And the thing is, the servants themselves are all, well, at least 2 of them seem to be in on this, right? So there's the first one where she yells out, she's like, she's over here. You've got all these ways that, I'm sorry, you've got one that's into this, right? You've got the one who's reporting back to the family before Emily shoots her in the face or the eye with the crossbow, and you get an idea, like, they know what's going on too. It's like the Clerks Death Star theory about, like, they're not guiltless in this. They know what's going on. They know what has to be done. They're okay with it too. I'm sorry?
They know who they work for.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And not only that, they understand, as you pointed out, that aspect of privilege, because look at who they're working for. It's not even about, you talk about not being about the money. It's definitely not about the money for them, because it's about who they work for and who they're connected to. Because that one domestic says, I work here because the dad likes how I dance. Like, that's all she's there for. Like, he saw her dance. It's like, oh, she dances kind of sexy. I need to keep her around. I'm going to give her some money and take care of her. And that's it. It's kind of like, you kind of question, like, what upbringing or what surroundings they may have been around. Maybe just like Charity, where they were in a shitty situation and like, wait, I get to work in this big fucking house. All I have to do is dance every now and then. All I have to do is maybe read the kids a bedtime story, because they're not dressed for, I have to do all this other shit. It seems like these are the nighttime people just to be in the house for some reason. And then you got the butler who's, like fucking Jason Bourne and and Alfred Pennyworth. Like, he's there because he's in on this as well. I mean, hell-bent and fully in on this, to where it's kind of like, my survival depends on this, because if you guys don't exist anymore, my identity is gone. My income is gone. There's nothing for me beyond you guys, your survival and your livelihood.
I think it's great that the one person who's a good hunter in all of this isn't actually in the family, and it's the butler guy. I think that's just fantastic. He's like Liam Neeson, man. He's all over this shit. So
Liam Neeson's son.
That's right.
Well, one of the kids wasn't too bad either. He wasn't the best shot, but
it was close to a headshot.
Yeah.
Think how different this movie gets if that kid had killed her. Jeez. Be the hero.
Would they? So because they said that she was only supposed to be maimed, not killed, until the actual ritual. So if she had died earlier by that child, would they have still died?
Yes.
So they would have also
they have
exploded.
to complete the ritual.
Dang. Yeah. That kid almost ruined everything. I mean, not that it worked out for them in the end anyways, but...
Suckers. Let's talk about that scene for a minute, because I watch a lot of horror, obviously, and very few things get to me on a visceral level. And what Ready or Not does on a better level than I've seen done in a long time is tension build. Because she takes this shot to the hand, and there's a giant hole in her hand. And then we get this great moment where she punches the kid in the face, and everyone in the theater cheered. And But then she falls into this. What the hell is that even, Don? What the fuck is this thing that's filled with dead bodies?
I would just say it's a pit.
A goat pit, a body pit.
The goat pit. Into the goat. And we keep seeing this nail sticking up. And they just keep showing this fucking nail. And I was literally sitting in the theater. By like the third time they showed the nail, I was like, I don't want to fucking see this. I know what's coming, and I'm already viscerally reacting to it. And then it fucking hits. And it is one of the few things that has gotten to me in years. And it's because of that tension build and that beautiful, hey, everybody, guess what we're about to fucking do? And then it's still terrible when it hits. And I just, oh my God, I love that scene so much. I wish I wrote that.
I mean, I like the scene, but I feel like that was the same hand she got shot through, right? So shouldn't there just be a hole for that nail to just go through perfectly so she can just...
She kind of hits like the skin of it though. So she like
the edge?
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. Ugh. And I think that's what's great about it. I feel like you could easily have done the missing the nail. Like it could just go through the hole. And she could have had a moment where she looks at it and she's like, well, that would have hurt, or something really fucking stupid like that, right? And instead, they amp up the pain with it. Yeah. To just this fucking horrific thing. And,
the hand that's already been maimed. It's awful.
Yeah. I love it so much.
I mean, we brought up family a good number of times, and the question I had was, what exactly does it mean? I mean, to join someone's family, because that's a requirement for them to play the game at midnight, which I'm going to tell you, we've all been in, and I'm assuming we've all been in relationships where, you know, you've had to participate in something of the other family's tradition, or you know, your wife, husband, partner, where there's something where you're like, shit, I don't want to do this, but I don't want to be rude. And I love how Alex sets it up when Grace at first is like, no, really? We got to play a game at midnight? Yeah, it's a family tradition. It's a way of welcoming somebody new to the family. We got to do it. In fact, it's more important than the wedding, which was always, it's, you know, rewatching again. It's always a funny line that gets delivered because you're like, oh shit, you don't know what you're up for. But that whole idea of you're one of the family, I mean, that gets brought up for the first, you know, half of the film. You're one of us now. You're a member of the family. You know, it keeps getting brought up and up and up, right? So my question for this, what does it even mean to join someone's family?
Are you asking?
I don't have anything good.
Sorry.
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
so,
I mean,
okay, sorry. I thought, I didn't know if it was like one of those rhetorical questions where it's like the audience is like, huh, what does it mean?
No, I don't ask those things.
Okay.
He doesn't know.
Okay, we're good. So I think I mean, I don't know if I can answer that specifically, but I think it's such an interesting theme that they would play with, like you're saying, with somebody joining your family, because that's, from her perspective, like that's such an unknown. So it's already such a scary situation, like even outside of the horror genre, like joining somebody's family, especially when your own backstory is so like unsteady and shaky. That's so scary. Like that terrifies like anybody. And then having like all these extra layers of, oh, also we're very into traditions. Oh, also here's a bunch that you're going to learn about. Also, here's one we have to do tonight. And it just keeps adding on and adding on and adding on to the scary, unshaky situation she's already in. And she handles it so well, I think, like better than I probably would have. Like she's up for it. She's into it. Like once she asks him, like, are you serious? Like, is this a joke? Because I'm gullible. Is this a joke? And he's like, no, we're for real. She just goes with it. Like, and she tries to smile and play along because she wants to belong to them. And I think it's, I don't know, it's kind of sad, but it's also like very believable, I think, because that's what somebody would do. And I could see myself doing that, trying to join a family, being nervous, like loving the person I'm with, but being like, I really don't think that, you know, the family likes me. They think I'm a gold digging bitch. Like, oh no, you know, oh wait, can I say that B word?
Fuck yes.
Okay. Okay.
I thought that was rhetorical.
No, I don't ask those either. But yeah, no. So I don't know. I didn't answer your question exactly, but your line of thinking kind of spawned my own line of thinking.
So I want to say I would be so fucking bad at this because I would be like, no, I don't want to play a game. I'm good. Can I watch? Like, I'm that guy that I don't know what happens, but when I'm invited to like game night, I'm always the guy that's like, if there's an extra person, I can sit out, like I don't know why. Like, I enjoy watching others, but there's something about it that gives me incredible anxiety to have to actually do it. And it's very strange because if I'm playing like a one-person video game, I'm fine. Or like, like let's use Ticket to Ride. I'll play Ticket to Ride with my family. But as soon as like outsiders are there, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to play with these guys. And I don't know why. There's no reason not to. But I just feel like I'd be really bad at this. I'd be like, no, I'm good. No games. Thanks. And then they'd be very mad at me. But
so like maybe you're judging them, or you're worried that they're judging you for like your performance, which I think would also be interesting, like in the family's perspective of like, if you're playing a game with somebody who they've played this all the time for tradition, like that's another layer of, oh fuck, like I don't want to do this. Oh my God.
Oh no. I mean, that's probably 100% what it is. So yeah, I guess I'd have to pull Cards Against Humanity. It'd be the only thing I'd be comfortable with. And
no. But that's so scary. What if you said something and everybody hated you?
Excellent.
Oh God.
That probably already happened before the wedding.
I'm just wondering if that's a card in their list now. Like if one of the ones that somebody could have gotten is Cards Against, like, does it update with the times with current games, or?
It'd be weird if it didn't, right?
Demon, so it would have to be.
I would think so, right? Like, can they just be like Nintendo 64, go play like Mario Party or something?
I think it's weird that it doesn't.
Playing way past dawn, guys.
Why doesn't it just pull Ladomus games? Like, why is it pulling these other games? I don't know. That seems like it would make more sense.
We got to get the demon on the show and ask him.
Yes.
Maybe Mr. LaBelle, he got screwed when it came to the intellectual property. So he's like, no, I'm not going to give them any rights to use their games in this box because I'm not paying a percentage back to them.
So smart.
These people have never played their own games anyway, so they don't really strike me as they don't really strike me as a gaming family unless there's just been a wedding. So I have a question that's a big plot hole to me, and This is going to shift our conversation a little. Why the fuck don't they just pull Alex out and threaten to kill him if she doesn't come out? Like, before she knows how fucked up all this is, they have him cuffed up. Why don't they just pull him into the halls, put a gun to his fucking head, and say, get your fucking ass out here?
Maybe the house is too big, and she's too, like, they don't, because like in really large houses, you could stand in a spot and yell, and maybe somebody else, like in another part, especially if they're hiding, they won't hear you. So maybe they feel like that's literally the only thing I can grasp at here to answer your plot hole.
I mean, unless it's against the rules, which it could be, because they're technically not finding her, but I don't know.
I think, well, yeah, that would be one thing, but I think it also comes down to she'd probably call their bluff. If she knows that's what's going to happen, like, oh, they're trying to kill me, they get what they want if I come out, and they're not really going to kill their own son. So I think that's what it comes down to is probably one, yeah, they have to find her as part of the rules of the game. And then two, she probably would call their bluff. I mean, she's surviving so far. I mean, why wouldn't that make sense?
I feel like she would too, because when Charity is pointing the gun at Daniel, she doesn't really, it's like she doesn't really believe that Charity's actually going to shoot him until she does.
Cassie, do you have anything in your notes you really want to cover?
So the only stuff I have is just stuff about her like dress.
Oh yeah.
So they, like, I read that they filmed her, and they planned it out so specifically, like how she would use her dress and how she would move in her dress, that they had like 17 different versions of her dress because she had to use it for like so resourcefully. Like she had to use the sash for something. She had to use it to like wrap her arm up. It was like, it's this image of like purity and innocence, but then she's like using it in all these different ways and destroying it. And it's like making her more powerful almost, which I really liked.
Yeah, no, I love that. The English major in me sees all the symbolism of a wedding dress supposedly symbolizing innocence, which is usually a patriarchal term for she hasn't fucked anybody else. Mm-hmm. And that's not what I mean by it at all. I mean that she's the good guy. She's the innocent one in this house. Mm-hmm. So when I say innocent, that's what I'm talking about. And what happens is, as her innocence with the world is being stripped away, so is her dress. Like, it gets caught on things, or she rips it so she can run better. Or like you said, she uses it on her hand to stop the bleeding and different things like that. And I love how the dress progresses from this gorgeous white, perfect wedding dress to, I would argue, a gorgeous blood-covered dress at the end. I love this final scene with the dress. I think it's so fucking cool looking. And just knowing that it was actually caramel syrup that was dyed red and that Samara Weaving kept eating it, that's fucking hilarious to me. So,
that explains that one shot too where she licks it off her lips and she's just like, huh.
yeah she cut some interview and she was like, oh, it was delicious. And I love that so much. But yeah, I think it's cool how it's like layers of her survival instincts coming out with each rip. And, you know, she makes the choice on some. She uses some to save herself. And then, like, when she's squeezing through that gate and it catches and it's tearing at her skin, like, that's just really powerful imagery to me. And I don't know. I love everything about that. And you know what? I forgot. I have another favorite character in this. Justin is a fantastic character. She's in the car trying to get away, and the car shuts down. And she calls basically OnStar, and Justin answers. And Justin refuses to help her because, you know, the car's stolen, as he puts it, or reported stolen. And just how angry she gets with Justin. And she's like, you can go fuck yourself, Justin. And Justin's just like, there's no need for that language. Like, that scene is just so well put together. And it's just such a great example of humor in horror and how humor can often diffuse horror and make horror more insane afterwards. But in this case, it heightens it because you know what she's going through and she's dealing with this ridiculous fucking shit. And I love that so much. But I didn't mean to totally veer off the dress. But yeah.
No, I get what you're saying too. I like it's like her visceral reactions of like being so angry and so fed up. She does it a couple times, like when the car is driving by and she's trying to hail him and he's just like, get out of the fucking road. And she's like, fucking rich people. Like, she gets so angry in her like angry scream. I was like, yeah, no, I feel that. I really feel that.
Oh, she has a couple like guttural rages that are so good. Like, just wow.
So just the other thing that I had on her dress too is like, additionally with the like the innocence symbolism, I really liked that it's kind of like the whole movie is about classism. And like traditionally when people started wearing white for their wedding dresses, it was because they had money. So like it's something that could easily get dirty and you can't really reuse it, so rich people would wear white because it's showing off their status of being rich. Whereas poor people would probably wear like a darker colored one so they could wear it the next day when they're doing chores. And I thought it was really interesting that she comes from such a poor, you know, background apparently. And then she's in this dress. She looks like everybody else. Like, she's really beautiful. She matches, you know, her surroundings. And then over time, as she's distancing herself more and more from this family and fighting against them, like her dress gets more and more destroyed as she's going, which is just, I don't know. I really like the symbolism of that, like so pure and so like rich and nice and fancy, and then at the end it's just bloody and torn and like disgusting and awful, and everybody else is dead. Like, it's a really great juxtaposition to me.
Well, and even just the whole, like, I mean, obviously this would happen in this situation, but the way her hair is matted down and, you know, like it goes from this pristine image for the wedding to the reality of this is the life I'm living. And yeah, that's fucking great. I hadn't even considered it that way.
From the beginning to the end, I had this one question that stood out, which was, you know, what is the importance of ceremony, or why do we put importance on ceremony, right? So you've got the wedding, you've got the game playing, or at least the introduction of the game, and then the game itself. And this whole idea that a lot of things are done, a lot of ceremonial things are done for ceremony's sake, right? We're talking about school. The point of the graduation is just to showcase that you did the things that you were supposed to do to get your diploma, to get your degree, right? Mm-hmm. I've already done all my coursework, right? You know, if I'm graduating, I've done all my coursework. I'm done. I don't need to show up at graduation. For people to get married, you don't need to have a wedding. You can simply have someone, in most states, do you? Yes. Okay. Do you? Yes. All right. Let me sign it. I'm going to go ahead and take it to the recorder's office. It's done. You're married. As opposed to these ridiculously expensive weddings, which it really is just a party in a lot of cases. Ridiculously expensive weddings to let people know that you and this person are going to be, connected, right? And to let everyone else know that you two are now legally and spiritually connected, or however you want to define it. And I say the same thing when it comes to like the military, which I still will have a special place in my heart for, because being in the military, when you have all these ceremonies that take place, most of the time we're sitting there like, this is such a fucking waste of time. This is ridiculous. Like,
I was scared you were going to say something nice for once.
No. Oh my gosh. No one in the military says anything nice. But like, if we're coming back from a field exercise or deployment or anything like that, there's always something attached to it, which is, all right, here's something to demonstrate that you guys did what you're supposed to do. Oh, you're back. I'm like, yeah, no shit, we're back. All right, we're going to stand here in formation and go over all the stuff that you guys did for the last 18 months or the last 2 years while your family's standing right there. And we know they wanted to see you, but we're going to keep you standing here for another hour just so we can tell them, all the great stuff that you did. Meanwhile, you're sitting like, I just want to fucking go home to my family. I really don't care about this. Okay, you can send me an award. I don't care. But this whole thing that they carry on throughout the film, just like the theme of family, is this theme of ceremony for ceremony's sake. Like, I hate weddings. I'm sorry. and just like James, you said you hate playing games and things like that. The game is just another ceremony where in all honesty, I don't think Mr. LaBelle would care. It's like he just wants his sacrifice. He doesn't give a shit if you actually play a game. It's if that card comes up to play hide and seek, he cares more about the sacrifice, because even at the end when they fail, and Helene apparently, I guess, is seeing Mr. LaBelle in his chair and having a conversation with him. They played the game. They played hide and seek. There is no rule that says you have to find somebody. The game is hide and seek. One person hides. The group goes out and seeks them. They find them. Great. They don't find them. Great. He doesn't care about that. He wants his sacrifice, which is also why they're killing all those goats. And the dad even refers to Alex at one point as like, you're just another sacrifice. You're just another goat. So again, Mr. LaBelle doesn't care about the game. He wants his sacrifice. So the ceremony for me it's pointless for them. I mean, not for the movie's sake, but it's pointless because you don't need to do it to satisfy whatever it is, that Mr. LaBelle wants, which is he just wants his blood sacrifice.
Why does he tell her she could hide until sunrise if that doesn't matter?
I don't know. Maybe it goes back to one of these things about not tainting the blood, right? Because when you're going to kill an animal, let's say, you're going to butcher an animal, some animals release hormones into their bloodstream and like could taint the meat and things like that. Maybe it's an idea of making sure that she's not scared or overly scared because she has to keep running and doing all these other things to make sure the blood is still decent.
What were you going to say, Cassie?
I was just so about that then, because the guy in the beginning, Charles or whatever his name was, he was really terrified and they didn't seem really to But I guess maybe that was toward the very end. Like by that point, they were just like, well, oh, well, he's going to be a little tough with this. It is what it is. I feel like I thought the ceremony, like the significance when I was watching it, I thought it was because like they have this fortune that they built. So if they're trying to ask the demon or whatever to extend that same fortune to anybody new, like joining their family, like that's why they had to play the game, or that like it was part of their ritual or something for somebody joining specifically. But I also totally get where what you're saying. You're just like, he's just like sitting there like, I don't give a fuck what you guys do. You want cards? I'll give you cards. But I need one of you to die. Like somebody's got to die. Yeah.
I would love to know, like, if they had grabbed her right away and picked her up, like, does it work? Or does she really have to go hide and go through all this? I don't know. It doesn't matter because it'd be a terrible movie if they did that. And the hiding is what makes this work. And so I shouldn't complain about it. But I have questions.
It makes you wonder what the movie could have been like. Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it makes you wonder what the movie had been like if instead of hide and seek, like one of the killer games could have been something else. Like, I don't know, like tag or freeze tag or something. And like if they touch her, she's just immediately like, I feel like they had to really focus and be like, what game could work for this movie?
Mm-hmm. I hope they built it the other way. I hope they were like, let's make a horror movie about hide and go seek. Oh yeah, how do we do that?
Well, here's the thing. Would either one of you participate and in as far as hide and seek?
On which side?
As the seeker. Obviously, James, obviously. Would either one of you participate as a seeker in this hide and seek? Or if there was another game that got pulled, what game would you want to have been pulled if you know the rules and you're the new person that's being added?
Oh God, I know you asked me what game I would want to be pulled, but for some reason my brain immediately chose which one I would not want to be pulled. And I was just, can you imagine pulling Twister and having to play Twister with these people? Just like in your wedding dress?
No, I think that would be hilarious. Emily would be distracted by the cocaine on the floor,
Emily, that's your left hand. It's your right hand.
I'm terrible at it because I never know. Like I do it wrong too because I'm so focused on trying to stay upright that I don't pay attention to left or right. I'm just like, oh, green. I know where green is. Oh God, and then I collapse because I did it wrong.
And as they hit, they explode.
Yeah,
the Twister board is even more like gooey and gross, and they're sliding everywhere. God. My answer to your question, Don, would be I would want to choose Mousetrap because it never works. So I'm not gonna die.
It gets like 3 clicks down and it stops.
We're just going to start a new podcast. It'll just be 5-minute other games they could have died to, and it'll just be us talking about this every day with a different game.
Yeah, no, I think that's fun. We'll just one episode's going to be based off of Operation, and just every so often we just hear.
We need you to eat these butterflies. Why? Oh, we'll talk about it later. What game would you pick, Don?
I would have to go with either a standard, either Monopoly, because then that's really going to prove whether or not this family is going to be worth joining, right?
No family is worth joining if they're playing Monopoly.
Or, I mean, you got games, because it's not just board games, but I would even say, like, you've got enough people there, right, in this family to where you could go play something outside like kickball or dodgeball. Dodgeball would be fun because several of these people I wanted to get hit in the face with.
Fitch is going down right away. Bye, Fitch.
How do I play this? Let me Google.
Boom.
Google how to play dodgeball. But I want
just see Ben Stiller. I just see Ben Stiller now. Like Fitch is crying, and he's like, "Oh, big boy's gonna cry," like. That's the mashup I need, apparently.
I read that the 2 guys that are in that how to use a crossbow video that he was doing are like the writers for the movie. Yeah. I thought it was a real show. Like I went on YouTube and I was like, is this a thing? But it's not.
I thought that was such a great way to cameo too.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Let's get into the end of this. So, Do you guys know the original ending, by the way?
Mm-mm. You and I talked about it before, but I can't recall.
So let's talk about the real ending, and then we'll come back to this. I was just curious if either of you had read about it. So the real ending, Daniel like half poisons everybody to get Grace out of the room. Then, of course, Daniel gets shot by Charity. Alex finally gets his moment. Grace kills Andy McDowell's character. And Alex comes in and sees his mom dead. And then we get that big moment where Alex goes full douchebag and he does the whole, she's in here. And they take her to the sacrifice and they're going to kill her. And in the original ending, they did. The original ending for this fucking script is Grace dying. And if they did that, we wouldn't be talking about this fucking film. Because holy shit, what a bad ending that would be.
I don't know. I don't know if that would be a bad ending.
I think it would. I don't think there's anything redeemable about that. And I love bad endings. I love bad guys winning. I just feel like you would lose everything that makes this movie, which is her gaining the survival skills and doing it,
I mean, I prefer the ending that my curiosity is about how it would have looked. Would this have been one of those things? Like, how would they cover up, or would they even need to cover it up? Because I said that it seems like the family went out looking for people that were vulnerable and replaceable that no one was going to miss. But I mean, when all your maids are dead and you've got the mom is dead, how are you going to explain any of this? So I'm curious as to how they would have done that. I love the fact that in the actual ending, the house burns down because, when Grace throws a lamp. But you don't have to explain anything to any authorities because the house burned down. I could say any number of things like, oh, the family went crazy. Emily was doing cocaine and she shot people. And, I just barely got out of the house. Look at my hand. I just barely survived. I mean, there's so many things she could come up with.
I definitely think I like her surviving more than I would have liked that original ending, because it doesn't have that same, cause she's such a good final girl, and she's such a good addition to Scream Queens and Final Girls, and such a good this is where horror is going, where girls are not just here to be murdered. And I think that going against that progress in this particular movie probably would have detracted from how much I liked it.
Well, and a lot of Final Girls are they already have these skills, or they have a reason that they have these skills, and Grace has to figure this shit out as she goes. Mm-hmm. She literally has to find ways to buy herself time and use whatever weapon is near her and make it work, And I think that that's one of the things that really shows her evolution throughout, because she does become stronger on screen as we're watching. And I think that that's what makes her such a great final girl, is she's in these horrible situations against her will, and she has to find a way out. And if that's not symbolic of what women deal with every day, I don't know what else is. Women are constantly in positions where other people made choices, or were in control of the situation, and they have to survive. And that's so real to me that Grace is an extremely special character to me, because we get to see somebody who's in this position and had to evolve as it's happening. And that's what would really happen to us. If I was stuck somewhere with a family trying to kill me, that's how it would work. I don't have these fucking skills. I would have to figure it out in this minute. And I think that's why she resonates so much with me.
Speaking of resonating, I love Aunt Helene's character, because this is
that's
part
you.
of the No. This is the part of the yes.
Jaded, angry, killing people with axes.
No, there was something I would like to have been done differently with her character. Whereas you see how Alex, does his full turn, or at least does his full reveal, because it's not even clear if he did a turn. Because we get that we get the viewpoint from Daniel. He saw what happened. Alex saw what happened when they were kids, right? you don't necessarily need that with anybody else except for Aunt Helene. And she finally reveals it late in the film where she says, you know, the only person she had ever loved, you know, had to be sacrificed that night. And, you know, she wishes that she had made the choice to kill that night because she didn't. She wishes that she had made the choice and regretted that she didn't go through with the sacrifice, right? So watching what Alex is going through and seeing what Grace is going through, there was a part of me that was thinking, maybe she's going to end up helping. I mean, she never does, but maybe she's going to help her out because she does realize that it was wrong and nothing has ever happened. You know, she's so sucked into this because to the point where if you go back and watch the film, if you didn't notice it already, she's the only person that's not happy at the wedding, or at least fake happy. She's sitting there with her hands on her knees, not smiling, not cheering, not crying. You almost get that indication of fuck, she knows what's going to happen, and she's thinking about how to. And even when she comes into the room that night, you know, she's lurking, and she's, you need to come do the ceremony. You know, I forgot how she says it, but she basically tells Alex, like, hey, you know, you're needed in the study. We're gonna play the game. So you get the sense that she's reluctant about all this, and then you realize that she's not. She's fully bought into it. But I kept out holding hope that she was going to have that kind of same reaction that Daniel does, where he's kind of like, you know, this is bullshit. I had to give up the man that I loved, and all these shitty ass kids in this house got to have the person that they wanted, and they never had to pull the card, but the guy I love pulled the card. So fuck all of you. You're not going to get anything that you guys want from now on. So I would have loved to have seen that part.
I absolutely didn't want her to help. And my reasoning is the same reason Dumbledore had to die.
Okay.
I don't want someone else to save you. I want you to have to step up and do it. And I want everyone against you.
I don't mean fully save it. It's just an issue of turning on the family. And maybe she gets killed just like Daniel. I don't mean like she gets Grace out of the house. I mean, it's that idea where she just does not like, she has this moment where she doesn't approve of anything that's going on because she's seen everybody else get by, you know, because of who they are and what's going on. And she didn't get the, you know, it could just be she stabs her brother or something. You know, any number of things could have happened.
I feel like she's the one who believes that she's really the chosen one, so to speak. Like, right. She's the only one who's made this sacrifice, so she's better than everybody else. Like, I don't feel like she holds ill will towards them. I think that she views them as beneath her, and I think that doing that would really bring that down. Instead, she's like, you're all fucking stupid. You can't do anything. You can't even kill this person with a crossbow. I'm going to go chop her fucking head off. You know, like I view her as this power that she got from that sacrifice that she made. And so now she's always better than them.
Well, and we definitely get that at the end. I mean, what I was saying is if it had been something else, like you're getting to that point where you realize that that's not who she is, I would have been interested in seeing how that played out. But I still love Aunt Helene because I love the whole thing where she's still trying to bargain with Mr. LeBang at the end, and she's like, no. I know it's late, but we can still do it. Fuck the ceremony. I'm going to cut her head off. I see your point as far as this idea that she does see that she's willing to go through with this. Because she's the only one of them who had to sacrifice or had their love sacrificed. But I love her because I think she would make a badass character. You know, the same person make her a badass character in any number of films. Like, I could see her as a Bond villain, especially since if you've ever looked up Elon Musk's mom, that's who she looks like. And Elon Musk's mom looks like a Bond villain.
I loved her design. She looks like a bird or something. Like I kept I thought the first time I saw this, I was like, is she going to turn into a bird? Like, are they magical and they can like shapeshift? Because her hair and just that like cloak she wears, she's so birdish.
Oh yeah. No, totally. I'd never thought of the shapeshifting, but that would totally work for her. That'd be kind of interesting.
I didn't think...
Even if it was just Emily hallucinating from all of her drugs.
Just like a crazy drug thing, yeah.
She's just like sitting there and the bird keeps talking to her and she's freaked out. I would totally watch that.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about it talking to her. That would be awful. Like, because the way she was sitting at the wedding too, just like perched on that chair, like glaring so meanly. If she just like turned and started talking to her with like a beak, it would have... that would have been like a good moment, I think.
I definitely feel they didn't cash out on Emily being high enough. They should have totally given her hallucinations on top of everything else. So we get to the almighty moment. The sacrifice fails and the sun is up and they have failed. And they all brace for whatever's coming. And then it doesn't happen. And you just get that wonderful moment where they're like, I believe it's Fitch, they're like zoomed in on, and then his one eye opens and he kind of like looks around. And holy shit, when I was in the theater for this film, everybody lost it at that point because tension was so high. And then you just have this moment of, haha, didn't matter. And you're like, holy shit. And then they explode.
Of course, Fitch says, I knew it was bullshit. I'm like, I know that's going to come back to you.
And then they blow the fuck up. And it is the most amazing piece ever. I cannot imagine loving this film without this ending.
It was so satisfying.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It was so good to just see them just... And it's the fact that they don't all pop at once.
Right.
Like, I want to be the one that pops first in this situation. I want to not know. Like, Emily and her kids run out of the room and then pop back in. Fucking great. And then, everybody else blows the fuck up. And apparently it was Samara Weaving's idea to make Grace laugh through this. And it is so powerful to watch her giggling while she's being covered in this delicious blood. And like you said, she kind of licks it off and eats it a little bit, And this is just such a great fucking scene. And then Alex is left. And Alex tries to bargain so hard as though she can fucking change things.
Right.
And you get this great moment. And Cassie, you may not know this, but me and Don are both divorced. And that moment where she takes the ring and says, I want a divorce, and chucks it at him. Oh, that's fucking beautiful.
I wish I had done that. I mean, hypothetically, I wish I had done something.
Throw in the ring or made her explode? Don't answer that. There's cops.
Throw in the ring. Throw in the ring. Throw in the ring. Throw in the ring.
But yeah, I think this is so symbolic of everything. Like, this is such a great ending. And they said it took them like 20 script rewrites of the ending to get to this. And I don't know what else they went through, but I don't ever want to know because nothing can compare to this. This is one of my favorite movie endings ever.
It has a very like Heathers-esque feel to the end of it with the cigarette and the fire and stuff. I really love it.
Oh my God. It's a totally cheesy line that shouldn't work. And apparently Samara was actually scared the line wouldn't work. But when she just says in-laws, like, the people in my theater started cheering at that part. And I didn't go that far, but I was like, that was fucking great,
Right.
So, yeah.
The exploding, the corporal explosion was hilarious because it was also the sound, that sound of like a water balloon hitting a wall. And it was also the suddenness of it with Aunt Helene happens to be the first one where she's like, fuck the ceremony, forget the ceremony. I'm going to do it my fucking self. I'm going to cut this bitch's head off. And she gets like 2 steps over with the axe and it explodes. I can't remember how many people were in the theater when I saw it, but I started laughing and I had an uncontrollable laugh when Emily and her kids ran away, because I'm like, oh, this is going to be hilarious. And then you just hear pop, pop, pop. And, the squishing of the blood hitting the walls. And I was like, that was fucking funny. The only person I felt bad for, and I mean bad in a very loose sense, was Fitch, because I didn't feel bad for the kids either, because apparently it was understood that the kids knew. I mean, especially the older kid, Gregory or whatever his name was. They knew about the ceremony, or else he wouldn't have shot. He wouldn't have shot at Grace. But I kind of felt bad for Fitch, because he was just a fuck up. Now Emily was, she got her own issues going on. Seems like Fitch. Well, I was lucky enough to be in this family and get some money, and things are great for me. But I don't believe any of the stuff that's going on. And then he explodes. Charity, I felt nothing for when she exploded.
What about you, Cassie? What did you think was going to happen to them?
I don't know if I was expecting anything specific, because I didn't picture like fire or anything like that. I just know that I did not expect them to explode, because when they did, I was like, oh my God, like, holy shit, like, that's crazy. And I remember thinking too, I didn't think they would all explode. I thought there would be some sort of like, I don't know, something that would get some of them off. So like the kids, for example, when those three ran out of the room and then you just hear pop, 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 and like the blood gushes inside, I was like, nobody's safe. Like even the children are not safe. And toward the end, when he's trying to like plead for his life and like appeal to her, and he's like, it's our love that's keeping me alive. And she's like, no, fuck you. And then it was so satisfying. And he's just like, poof. And that was just, I really loved it. Like I didn't picture anything ahead of time. I would not have changed anything though. It was perfect.
I imagine Mr. LaBelle sitting there in the chair, like pointing at people, especially with Helene saying, what she's doing. And he's like, nope, boom. And then just going through each one, just having fun with it. I just imagine him sitting there listening to Alex with his bullshit speech. He's like, that's enough. Pow, you're done.
Now I'm picturing Mr. LaBelle doing the I'm squishing your head motion. Pop, pop, pop. Anyway, mine was definitely melting. I thought they would all melt at once, and I thought it would be fast. Like, I didn't think it would be stupid, like I just thought they would just kind of goo down. Obviously, I am way more excited with what they did. Hey, I don't know if you guys know this. Random note left in my notes here, so I'm going to share it. Okay. When the intro, the very beginning with the first murder, the masks that they wear are based off of the masks in a Twilight Zone episode called The Masks, which is about rich people who have to wear them. And the entire point is that these things conform to what you are on the inside. And so they become these really grotesque looking faces. And as time passes, I think it's midnight or whatever. I haven't seen it in many years, but whenever the time expires, these things are stuck on their faces. And so they wear their souls on the outside. And I love that these are a throwback to that episode, and that it really fits what's happening here.
That's really interesting. I love Twilight Zone, but I wonder if when that episode was airing, because how they mentioned like, oh, that was just something, from the 80s that he liked or whatever. Like, I like the context in my head now that his father like watched that and liked that and was like, we're going to start doing this in our ritual with the weddings.
It was the 80s. Yeah. Oh, I love that. All right. Do either of you have any notes that we haven't covered?
I don't.
I do not, other than, I guess, the goat parallel or because maybe it's just, but when Samara Weaving, Grace, I shouldn't say Samara Weaving, but when Grace, the character Grace, I guess, is being carted off and she's having to hear from the dad about, her place and all this sort of stuff. It sounds to me like instead of screaming or crying, it sounds like she's bleeding like a goat, and, instead of shrieking or screaming. And so I just thought that was kind of, if it was intentional, I thought it was a cool touch. Because she sounds like she is being, that animal that's being sacrificed at toward the end of the film where she's making the noise. To the point for me, that was one of the most disturbing things about the movie. Not the nail in the hand or the dumbwaiter death or anything like that. it was the sound that she made, when they're trying to carry her off to her sacrifice. Cassie, is there anything that stands out to you as any other films or even shows themselves that are very similar to this film, or something that, if you like this, you'd watch that?
No, I mean, really, the only comparison was just that I had was just to Heathers, just because it was like a girl, coming through at the end, being through some tough shit. It's very, very different. There's no rituals or demons. It's just like Mean Girls. But then since I'm recommending that one also, then Jawbreakers, and now you guys have the movies I like, me as a person. It's really good. I really like movies where, there's like that underdog that you're not expecting to get through things, and then they do. Especially when it's like a powerful girl that wants to be liked, and by the end she's just like, fuck this. I'm gonna burn everything to the ground. Like, I'm not here for this. I really relate to those.
Awesome.
James?
Well, okay, so I'm gonna start with Clue. Because Clue is, in my opinion, the film with the best dialogue ever. I absolutely love the movie, but I love the feel as well. And this feels like a horror cousin of Clue, right?
Okay.
And so definitely Clue. So going off of that, I would add Knives Out. It's definitely not the same, but I feel like it's still related. I feel like if you like this, you're gonna like what happens in Knives Out.
I haven't seen that.
Oh my God, definitely go watch Knives Out.
Great.
I'm writing it down right now.
And then Get Out. I don't know if that was one of your answers, Don. If it is, I'll let you rant about Get Out.
No,
but this goes back to the rich and privilege and entitlement. And Get Out is 100% privilege and entitlement. And my final one is because weaving is my god. So Mayhem. Mayhem is fucking nuts, and you get to see her be a badass again. Guns Akimbo, she's a badass, but I feel like Mayhem is more related to this. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So you took a couple of mine. I'm going to start off with, I guess, the one. I would say anything from the Purge series of films, because you get into class, or at least a lot of good class discussions, which also pushes me into recommending our episode on the Purge. The Pest I've mentioned is John Leguizamo movie back from the 90s. It's a comedy, but it still has a couple of issues that deal with class and race. And the fact that there's a rich guy who's to be hunted, and he's doing it because he's a rich guy and he can do it. The Box, the whole idea of you're going to get money, but you push this button, somebody is going to die, and having to deal with that. But because I can't go too long without bugging James about 1980s horror action movies, and that we currently have a person in the White House who was a game show host. The Running Man, because it's that same thing of you're having people hunted on national television out of sport and for entertainment. You don't like action movies.
Well, but I love The Running Man.
They're all the same to you, James. Oh, Running Man is one of my favorite action horror movies, and I will fight anyone. It fits, because that is. Whenever you're dealing with dystopian future, that's what you got to think about. So those were the ones I had, and yes, Get Out would fit in as well. I think you mentioned The Hunt, but I think there are a lot of good films that get into talking about class, talking about differences of any number of ways, without having to beat you over the head with it. And I just love the fact that they're getting so smart now with the way it's presented, and the especially even with the visuals themselves. Because as two of you were talking about the dress, I had to sit back and think like, holy shit, I saw it, but I didn't pick up on it. It's one of those things that when I go back and watch it again, I'm gonna pay special note to those things.
Cool. All right. If you don't have anything else to add, Cassie, why don't you tell everybody where to find you online and how to order all of your stuff?
Okay.
And I mean all of it. We want you to just sell out and
every last thing. I'm looking at her Etsy page right now.
Yeah, it is. It's conveniently all located in one spot. So my blog is letsgetgalactic.com. And then again, that's just where I do book reviews. Sometimes I put lists of video games or like movies from the 90s that I've loved in different themes. And then my art shop is etsy.com/letsgetgalacticart, or you can also do letsgetgalacticart.etsy.com. Both URLs should work. And I have bookmarks, art prints, recently added posters for some of my digital art. And then, I have those other books that I'm working on. And then I actually have one featuring Grace. I have a Final Girls coloring and activity book coming out early next year. And she's one of the Final Girls in it. So it's 20 different Final Girls from movies. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And so I was really excited for this because I was like, yes, this fits in perfectly. I was going to rewatch it anyway. And then I'm also on Twitter and Instagram, and my username is Control-Alt-Cassie. So it's like on the keyboard, CTRLALT Cassie, CASSIE. And then if you want to follow my reading/book Instagram, you can, and it's at Reading in a Prism. And I think that's it.
Cool.
Well, I mean, sorry, other than the Pikecast, which if you want to follow my podcast, the Pikecast, that's available at the Pikecast on all social media.
Very nice. All right, so that wraps it up for this week. As always, I am James Sabata.
And I am Don Guillory.
And we will see you next week here at thenecronama.com.